Ladies, you're on.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Children and Family Affairs Subcommittee meeting for February the 18th, 2025. Thank you for joining us today. And we're going to begin with a prayer by Representative Kiesling, and then we're going to say the pledge. So if you would all please stand and remain standing until after the pledge.
Our Heavenly Father, we come to you before bowing, thanking you for this day, for the many blessings that you have not only blessed us, but as a state, Lord. We just thank you. We just ask you to be with our committee members and those attending today, Lord. We just pray that you give us, the committee members, wisdom as we hear and proceed to vote on each and every bill today. Lord, we just thank you. We also ask your blessings and safety upon as folks travel tomorrow or later tonight and tomorrow. We just pray for travel mercies for those who don't have to be on these things. We ask in thy name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Has everyone signed in? They have. Madam Clerk, would you take the roll, please?
Madam Chair, you have 7 members present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Madam Clerk. Members, do we have any personal orders? Seeing none, as soon as our bills have been heard, we'll be hearing a presentation from the Department of Children's Services. But first, we have 5 bills on the calendar. We have a little housekeeping to do. House Bill 315, number 2, House Bill 46. It's been rolled 2 weeks. And then number 4, House Bill 315 has been rolled 2 weeks. So we will call up the first bill, number 1, House Bill 40 by Representative Reedy.
Motion.
Properly motion and second. You are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. Madam Chair, I do have an amendment on this bill, and that amendment number, the drafting code 2041.
We don't have the amendment.
I never received it.
Okay. Showed that it was signed and sent in, and of course, the only thing is just changing the date from January 1 to January 30th. Request of TASR, just that gives them 30 more days.
Well, without objection, we'll hear the bill, and you can bring that next week. It's just the date change.
Yeah, do we like bring it in full? All right, yeah.
Oh, in full, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, trying
sorry.
not to be difficult, but first I would like to say to Ms. Michelle Fogarty, thank you for attending. It was this fall before the election. We were having many meetings in my office and a roundtable discussion about the school threats, what's going on with juvenile delinquency throughout the state. And incidentally, I received a letter, and that letter that prompted this TASR study legislation was from the city of Germantown, the Germantown Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and it had made request, and I'm not sure why I received it because it's not in my district, and just one paragraph out of that. We appreciate the recent funding and improvements planned for the Wilder Youth Development Center in Fayette County. While these improvements are necessary and welcome, there remains a substantial need to address the overwhelming capacity issues throughout West Tennessee. Juvenile delinquency and associated crimes have become a well-documented problem across urban, suburban, and rural areas of West Tennessee. There is a clear need for comprehensive juvenile rehabilitation and detention facilities within a capacity exceeding 750 detainees. So I get this information saying, okay, we've got a problem. And of course, my juvenile judge is saying that we have a problem in my district. And it was trying to figure out what we needed to do. And of course, it was with legal's help come up with this TASER study. So the TASER study, what we're looking for, number one, local juvenile detention centers and other facilities for the housing and treatment of juvenile detained prior to an adjudicatory hearing. And number two, housing and other treatment facilities for juvenile offenders who have been adjudicated delinquent and committed to the custody of the Department of Children's Services. Requires TASER to conduct the study from existing resources and to report its findings to the General Assembly and Legislative Librarian by January 30th of 2026. And that would be as the bill would be amended, is just that date change. So with that, Madam Chair, I stand ready for questions.
Members, do we have any questions for Representative Reedy? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Madam Clerk, would you open the vote, please?
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Your bill moves out to judiciary full.
Thank you.
Next, we have item number 3, House Bill 1169 by Representative Himmer. Properly motion and second, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Committee. This bill simply requires the Council on Children and Mental Health to submit an annual report on the status of children's mental health in Tennessee to make recommendations for system improvements to the members of General Assembly. This was a report that they used to do, and it got sunsetted, and it came out this year. I did a lot of work meeting with a lot of stakeholders on children's mental health this year, and one of the things we found was it seemed a lot of stuff seemed very fragmented, and this was already in statute and something that could kind of help coordinate a lot of the different resources and provide us recommendations, and can be absorbed in the current work on the Council of Children's Mental Health, and doesn't require any additional resources to fulfill. So we've done a lot of work on this topic in recent years, the General Assembly and the Governor's Administration, to address children's mental health concerns. But despite historic investments made toward children's mental health needs, the key indicators of poor mental health continue to rise. So this is, according to the 2024 State of Child in Tennessee report, within the last year, 55% of high school girls and 30% of high school boys felt sad or hopeless and feel hopeless every day for 2 or more weeks, representing a 50% increase since 2013. So, like I said, this bill just simply requires the Council of Children's Mental Health to submit this annual report to provide some recommendations and work with key stakeholders within state government. It was also brought up as something when the Sycamore Institute did a very deep dive report this year on the various factors and needs for children's mental health. And so would love to have your support and answer any questions.
Members, do we have any questions? Questions been called? Without objection, we'll be voting on House Bill 1169 going out to judiciary full. Madam Clerk, would you please open the vote?
Madam Chair, you have 6 ayes and 0 noes.
Thank you.
Thank you, members of the
Your
committee.
bill moves out to, House Bill 1169 moves out to judiciary, I can't say it, full. So next on the agenda, we have item number 5, which is my bill, and we're going to pass the gavel down to Chairman Doggett, please.
All right, thank you. Item number 5, House Bill 501 by the Chair Lady Littleton. I think there's a motion and a second already. All right, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I serve on the Second Look Commission, which is for the dependent and neglect children. So we've learned so much from that commission. We've had good legislation, and we think it's been a blessing to the children and to us as legislators to learn more about it. So this was brought to my attention that maybe we should do that for juvenile justice as well. So this would form a second look commission where we would hear cases of juvenile justice, and these are some of the worst cases that are out there, and we study them every other month. And we study at least 4 cases. Sometimes they're so long that we only study like 3. But this would do the same thing for juvenile justice that we do in the second look for dependent and neglect.
Very good. Any questions for the sponsor? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. We're now voting to send House Bill 501 on the full judiciary. Everyone voted. Anyone wish to change their vote? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 ayes and 0 noes.
Very good. House Bill 501 moves on to full judiciary.
Thank you, committee. Thank you. So without objection, we are going to go out of session and call the Department of Children's Services up for a presentation. We're out of session. If you would please come forward and introduce yourselves and who you're with, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Lady Littleton. I'm Margie Quinn, the Commissioner of the Department of Children's Services. I have with me Deputy Commissioner Carla Aaron and Executive Director Liam Moyer. And glad to be with you, honorable members of the committee. As the child serving agency in a position of public trust, it is vitally important that the Department of Children's Services gets it right every time. The future of our state will be determined by the character of our children. Since September of 2022, DCS case manager turnover has dropped from 29% to 16.8%, and first-year case managers continues to drop from the all-time high in 2021 of 97% to 18% in 2024. The vacancy rate dropped from 24% to 8%, as vacancies declined from 692 to 150. In January, we converted 47 open positions that had been long time vacant, which we would have been at 103 openings had we not converted those long time open positions. The state has invested in the tools so that we can hire, retain, and stabilize our child serving teams. When DCS gets it right, Tennessee families succeed. TFACs should be fully implemented by late fall of 2026. The Davidson County CPS case manager case file averages have fallen from 96 to a low of low 30s, week over week. And the DCS real estate plan is in the execution phase, having identified all 9 properties for the 6 intake facilities and 3 permanent assessment centers. Carla?
Good afternoon. I'm Carla Aaron, the Deputy Commissioner. Just quickly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Child Protective Services and what we're doing on the non-custodial side. To give you a little idea of the volume, last year we had 151,770 calls that came into the hotline. So significant amount of calls that come in. Out of those calls, we worked over 62,000, almost 63,000 Child Protective Services cases. Meaning we went out and responded to allegations of abuse or neglect. We were able, for Child Protective Services, to divert over 3,300 actually, children from entering foster care. And we do this by finding other options for a family. We either stabilize them through moving a child with a family member or other custodial arrangements. So we're able to stabilize a family, keep a child safe, but they're not entering the foster care system with some of the strong work that we're doing. We also use quite a lot of our community resources to help us with that, some of our contract vendors, as well as just some community resources to help the family and stabilize the situation. We're also very proud of the specialized drug teams that we've been able to establish. Back in 2017. We started them on the east side of the state, and we've been able to roll them out across the state in 8 of our 12 regions. We're about to embark on 2.5 more regions. We'll have about 1.5 regions in the next few months that will be without a drug team, but we're quickly able to find the staffing resources and provide the necessary training to use a really unique approach in child protective services. These drug teams served a little over 2,400 kids last year, and working with families who have substance abuse issues. The drug teams do the investigations on infants through 12 months. So this does not completely represent all the cases that we see that are involving substance abuse, but it's the most vulnerable, the ones that need quick interventions. We often go to the hospital and work with mothers and fathers literally within hours after they've given birth. If the mother or the child tests positive for a substance, the drug team will intervene. They'll go to the hospital. They'll begin planning not only for the protection of the child and where they may need to go, but also for the mother or the father so they can get the substance abuse treatment that they need, based on their particular situation. So we know that these drug teams really work with our infants. They keep them oftentimes coming into foster care. We're able to find family members and relatives to take this baby many times from the hospital. And sometimes if that child is in NICU, they're able to actually go and work with a nurse or a doctor and meet their medical needs. So that child is attached, it's bonded to a family member while the mother or father or both are seeking some type of treatment. So we're excited that we're expanding these across the state throughout the year. And then another unique team that we have that has really come into fruition the last 2 years is our human trafficking team. And this team is operated to deal with the victims of human trafficking on the custodial side. So they're doing investigations with a lot of our law enforcement partners. They work very closely with TBI, FBI, some of the other local law enforcement agencies to do the investigation involving our victims of human trafficking. We're also in the early stages of developing a pilot out of Shelby County where we'll use our knowledge and expertise on human trafficking and work with some of our custodial youth who we believe have been trafficked and provide some case management on that side too. If that goes as well as we expect, we hope to be rolling that out across the state in the years to come. Again, to provide that unique opportunity and that connection with those very vulnerable teenagers that have experienced human trafficking. Quickly, I wanted to mention, I forgot this, when we were talking about drug teams, they align with our Safe Baby Courts. And we've rolled those out over the past few years across the state. A lot of the work that we do with that particular population will end up in juvenile court. And so the alignment and the practice that we've seen on the investigative side transitions very well into the Safe Baby Court protocol and the work that we're doing there. So again, we're really maximizing our resources and seeing some really good outcomes with that by keeping that very young population out of custody. And the last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the development of a prevention team that we have under my supervision that will really focus on these efforts to keep kids out of custody. They'll be working very closely with some of our courts, particularly some of our courts who are in the rural areas. Resources may be somewhat limited, or the community resources may need to be rallied to serve a family and hopefully keep some of these kids out of custody. We have court liaisons that will be a part of this team that will be laser focused on working with judges and working with court staff, and a liaison to the DCS staff to ensure that we have some resources and we have other options to present to a court and hopefully prevent a custodial episode, but also to stabilize and to prevent not only the custody episode, but also prevent further interaction with Child Protective Services or for the department. So we're excited about this prevention team. It's new, and we look forward to bringing back some good outcomes and talking a little bit more of that as we get further into the work that they're going to be doing.
So at full staffing, the department can pivot from one of constant crisis response to an agency of strategic initiatives. Our strategic initiative of prevention, which Carla just talked about, to one of permanency will drive our strategic goal. This map that you're looking at depicts the 15 counties in the state that contribute 50% of our foster care kids that come into custody. The majority of these counties are rural counties, and the resources are scarce in these counties. DCS partners with youth villages to deliver an intensive 3-day-a-week in-home therapeutic family counseling for children and youth who are at risk for coming into custody, or for the same, who are at risk for disruption from custody. The program is called Intercept, and it's highly regarded and evidence-based. The department currently uses 550 Intercept slots statewide. We have asked for an increase in the number of Intercept slots the department uses to specifically target these 15 counties, to try to drive down the number of kids coming into custody and to serve these families specifically. The program usually runs 6 to 9 months per family and has a 93% success rate. Has a 93% success rate. So when we're talking about strategic initiatives, really targeting these 15 counties for this type of strategy seems like the right idea for this department. We want to deliver the services right to the doorstep of these families. Instead of depending on the families to try to bring children to therapy, we want to deliver therapy right to the families. The heat map depicts kids coming into custody that need higher levels of care based on mental health needs. The darker the blue, the higher level of care need. The addition of DCS Strong Homes to care for the medically fragile, as well as 85 new specialized foster homes, will assist in caring for kids with increased levels of care. So placement has been a top priority of the department for the past 2 years. Increasing placement options in order to solve the influx of the crisis has been a top priority. DCS has opened 72 clinical assessment beds for the care of youth in the state at the Clover Bottom campus, with another 24 beds coming online this month. And this is reducing the number of youth in the transitional settings. Youth Opportunity Investments, or YOI, will open its CSI Memphis campus for boys with a delinquent history this month, thereby assisting us with the youth with pre-adjudicated charges. You may remember last year we were in front of this same committee talking about the difficulty we were having with youth who were bench ordered into our custody dependent neglect with pre-adjudicated delinquent charges. We believe that this is going to significantly assist us with those particular youth who are bench ordered into our custody dependent neglect with pre-adjudicated delinquent charges. YOI has also opened a Gallatin, Tennessee assessment 24-bed facility for boys, which is exclusive for Tennessee kids this month, and it expects to be at full capacity by the end of the month. All of these beds are helping us reduce the number of kids in transitional settings. In 2019, Governor Lee said, "Government is not the answer, people are." Every Child Tennessee is an example by mobilizing all Tennesseans to care for children, youth, and families impacted by foster care. Our response has been overwhelming. That is, Tennessee's response has been overwhelming. We lead the nation in the number of responses that we've seen to the Every Child Tennessee initiative. 1,215 volunteer leads and 2,911 Ready Now foster leads just since the inception of this initiative in August of 2024. The first 4 months. Tennessee's had 3 times the responses compared to other states with an Every Child Tennessee initiative. If that's not the volunteer spirit, I don't know what is. The Every Child Tennessee initiative and faith leaders, along with community partners, changed the story for children entering custody. And Tennessee has had just an incredible response. I'd also like to bring attention to the real estate plan, which our Executive Director, Leah Moyer, is in charge of. Again, we're building 6 intake facilities with a 12 to 15 bed capacity, 3 new permanent assessment centers, 24 beds each, 1 in each grand division of the state. We're building a new Woodland Hills facility here in Nashville, 124 hardware and staff secure beds. And we are rebuilding Wilder with 144 hardware and staff secure beds in Summerville. Reimagining how we care for Tennessee's children and youth requires bold innovation and partnerships. The system built for the kids of yesteryear had to be overhauled. This isn't 1950 or even 1985. And we can't pretend like the solutions we fixed for children and youth in the past are sufficient for the children of 2025. We must be forward-thinking. Tennessee will fashion a solution for the future that will work for children decades and decades to come. We welcome any questions you have.
Representative, so you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair Lady, and also thank you, Commissioner Quinn and Deputy Commissioner Aaron, for your presentation. I've got just a few questions about some of the slides that we saw. First, looking at page 5, the slide that deals with foster care entry rates, I noticed that the experience in 2022, 2023 seemed to be heaviest in East Tennessee with foster care entry rates, and there were very few in West Tennessee, in that other grand division. Can you comment on why what we see here shows so many more foster care entries in the grand division to the east versus middle and west?
So this is per 1,000 kids. And I mean, we would like to know that as well. I think you're looking at a number of different issues with regards to, I mean, when you look at poverty, drug use, we have some of those same issues in West Tennessee counties as East Tennessee counties. It's a difficult, I mean, we're not quite sure. Judicial philosophy plays a part in it. Resource poor counties. Again, that's why we have developed and devised the strategy that we have. The Youth Villages Intercept program is so widely regarded. This is why we have chosen this particular strategy. We believe that delivering the resources to the family and in the family home is going to be the right strategy for this to try to drive down. Now, we had a meeting about this in my office this morning, and we need to work with the judges because the judges will need to buy in to this strategy. They will need to allow us to let this work. They will need to allow us to keep the child in the home for a certain period of time to see if this works. So it's going to have to be a holistic approach between the courts and DCS and youth villages to see if this works. There are always going to be certain situations where a child has to come into custody, and we know that. But for situations where there's a behavioral issue at home that's causing a disruption in the home, we would like to have options where we can put resources in the home that may keep a child that is at risk for coming into custody, to keep that child in the home or prevent a disruption from custody. This would also prevent a disruption from a child coming back into custody that may be placed into a foster home. We see a lot of kids that are placed in a foster home, disrupting from that foster home. When I presented my budget hearing, there were 60 kids in transitional homes. 50% of the kids in our transitional homes that week were disruptions from custody that had come back into custody from disruptions. Fully 50%. So that tells us that we have to come up with a strategy to prevent disruptions from custody, every bit as much as we have to devise a strategy to prevent kids from, at some point, we've got to turn the spigot off. We've got to start lowering the number of kids that are coming into custody. Not just like welcome kids in, just welcoming kids in. We've got to start preventing kids from coming into custody. Keeping them in the biological home or placing with kin when that's possible. I mean, those are the first two options that have got to be on the table.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And also, let me just move forward to the 2024 data that you presented on page 4 of your presentation. And obviously, one number that is somewhat chilling is the 151,770 number next to the words child abuse.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got maybe 3 questions, if I could just give them to you all at once. First, do we have any breakdown for those cases between the 3 different grain divisions? Second, are those cases unique cases, or do we have 151?
Unique?
They're unique.
I'm asking, are you asking if that's unique cases or
children?
Right.
Yes. And then the third is, are these confirmed cases or simply reported or suspected?
So the 151 number is actually the reports that were made to the child abuse hotline. So I'm sorry that word was left out of there. Those are the calls or the web referrals that come into the hotline. Out of all of that, we had 62,000 that resulted in a case. That's a family. It's not a child, it's a case. So we responded to 62,000 families that had allegations of abuse or neglect. Now, the discrepancy in the numbers, we get calls to the hotline all the time. They're calling the wrong number. They're calling to know who their caseworker is, or they're just calling for information. So that we just capture the volume because they have to answer the phone and they provide some type of a response or customer service. But those calls do result in, obviously cases that we are going to investigate because there's some concern that a child is at risk or being abused or neglected in some way.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And then dealing with the geographical distribution, do we have any information on how these 62,669 cases break down across the state?
Yes, sir. We do. We can break those down by counties and by regions. We can break them down by allegations. So we have several ways of looking to tell whether it was severe abuse, the number of severe abuse, the number of non-severe abuse, ages. So we have quite a lot of data that we can dissect, and I'd be happy to share some of that with you if you're interested in that.
Are there any other questions? Representative Towns, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, thank you. On that breakdown, make sure we all receive that information. Other thing would be helpful is that child abuse, you need to notate what that is so we won't get a little misdirected in our minds, okay? That'll help us quite a bit. While you have that graphic there, human trafficking cases, 446 of those human trafficking cases, how many of those cases are prosecuted?
that would be up to our law enforcement partners. I would probably refer you to the TBI for that data, or the
Well,
Tibers data on that.
That would be good if you all had that data as well. So we'll know how many of those cases are actually been prosecuted. If they're human trafficking, in my mind, they're real legitimate. They all ought to be, but still, that'd be something that I'd be interested in
I
seeing.
would
I'm sure
agree.
the other members would as well. Now, foster parenting, the misuse of kids by foster parents, are y'all tracking that?
Yes, sir, we do. If we have allegations that a foster parent is mistreated, neglected, a foster child, we have a special investigations unit that conducts those investigations involving foster parents. And so we also have that data that can be shared.
We need that as well because
Representative Towns, you're
yes, ma'am.
recognized.
Go ahead, somebody.
You're recognized.
Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sorry. We need that as well. It would help us because I do get reports that some foster parents may be misbehaving as it relates to the children, which would help us to maybe screen a foster parents a little bit better as it relates to the people that we're trying to make sure that are protecting our kids. And for you all, hopefully you can answer this. Poverty is all over the state, all over the country. Have there been children removed from the houses because of poverty?
That is not the only indicator that we would remove a child from. Typically, when we see poverty, there are other accompanying things, poor living conditions, not having food, shelter, things like that, that would accompany that. I know of no situation where poverty was the only reason we removed a child. Mental health, substance abuse, other things that contributed to the fact, and poverty is certainly a factor in that, but the removal just for that reason is not concerning.
Well, all those things that you listed out are directly tied to poverty. If you don't have enough money, you can't feed your children.
Correct.
And we don't have to talk about eggs. We can talk about anything in the grocery store today. Now, I'm not saying children should be removed because of poverty, but there may be some other things we do with the money that will help that family provide for its children if we want the kids to stay together. And that would be the ideal thing for children to stay with their families. I mean, there are many of us in the room. I don't know the background of most folk in the General Assembly, but I'm pretty sure a lot of us have not had a economically stellar background. And as a result, we're not having that. A lot of us were probably poor as kids and didn't know it. But what we recognize is how much love there was with the parents that were there. We didn't want to go anywhere. Okay, so to the point of ensuring as best we can that children stay with their parents and so forth, or whoever their guardians are, which you all articulating that, but I'd love to see it obviously acted out. Poverty is something we need to consider as a way of making sure that people are not snatched from their family because we are just at this point poor. Other thing is this trending now is many of the young people that are in these foster care, they're breaking out and running away. So we're tracking that as well. And what is the cause of some of these kids running away? Is it the treatment? I don't know what it is. I'm trying to get to an understanding of why are there so many kids running away. There's a reason for it, and we need to know what those reasons are.
So I want to go back really quick. I want to go back to your original question of
Yes, ma'am.
poverty. We were also concerned about that and wanted to make sure that we were training our case managers about poverty and to be more empathetic about poverty in the families that we're serving. And you're correct that poverty impacts families in our state from Memphis to Mountain City and in every county in between. And so we have a poverty simulator exercise that we take our case managers through during our training. And I would love for you to come and observe the poverty simulator because I think it really is a genius part of our training exercise. It is really, really well done. And I think takes our case managers through an exercise that if they were not poor as children or young adults or single parents, they have no experience with. Because you're right, poverty is not abuse. And that's what we're trying to teach our case managers. Poverty is not abuse. Substance use disorder, which causes poverty, choosing substance over feeding your children may very well be abuse, right? That is abuse. But poverty in and of itself, not abuse. Children running from foster care, is certainly something we're tracking. Obviously, children running from care is something that we're tracking. Many times children running from care were children that were running prior to being brought into foster care. Children who are runners are extraordinarily vulnerable. Running leads to trafficking. Running leads to substance use. Running leads to other status offenses. Running leads to victimization. And it's something that we're certainly tracking on pretty closely. They obviously could be victims of something within the home. They also could be suffering from, other mental health or behavioral health issues. They could be trying to run back to a family that they wish they hadn't been taken from. There could be any number of issues going on that we're trying to get to the root cause of. So it's never one simple, put your finger on it answer. And so I understand exactly the question that you're asking, and yes, we're tracking on that data.
Finally, as long as we are not doing anything to cause them to run, the system, foster parents, foster facility, whatever it is, we want to make sure we're not doing anything
Well, I think
that creates that.
yes, sir, I understand what you're saying, but when you take a kid into custody, it's a traumatic experience. I mean, it's,
I know.
that in and of itself is going to cause trauma.
I know.
It is. And that in and of itself could cause a youth to run. Even if you do everything right and put the child in the very best foster home, in a great situation, that child may run. Even when we do every single thing right, the child may still run. And so that's because of something that happened before we ever became involved with that youth. And I'm just drawing on my experience having worked with trafficking survivors for over a decade. Bringing kids into custody is a really, really sensitive, really, really difficult thing. And that's why I started out by saying that we have to get it right every single time. Every single time. We cannot afford to get it wrong, not one time. And that's our goal.
Duly noted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Harris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Lady. And to the Commissioner, thank you again for being here. I first want to start off by saying I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me about a week and a half ago now. I think we have seen some headway move forward with the issue that took place in Memphis, and I appreciate you for that. I'm not going to go into great detail, but I appreciate that. So, but I do want to ask, the numbers that we're seeing on the screen as far as the data goes, is this encompassing the numbers of like youth villages and other entities and organizations, or are the cases probably even more larger with the other organizations too, and we just don't know what those numbers are?
So the numbers represented on this screen are the non-custodial kids. These are the numbers where we're working with the families and they don't enter foster care. I think you're probably looking for the numbers that are in custody that some of the other vendors and the providers would also help us care for. Is that correct? Okay. And those would be, and I'm not sure the custodial number today.
We have about 8,300 or 8,100 kids in custody right now, dependent neglect, and about 614 kids in the juvenile justice system. We're down significantly from where we were 2.5 years ago.
Representative Harris.
Thank you. And my last question is, so I know as part of our conversation, one of the things we talked about was education. And in normal reality, I guess we say that if a parent doesn't get a child to school, then it's considered truancy or whatnot. And one of those issues that we had, there was a child who just, wasn't going. And one of the comments made by someone, not in your area, but was that we can't force kids to go to school. Is there anything that we can do or that we should put in place to kind of put some teeth to making sure that, I know we can't, like you said, we can't put hands on a child or anything, but what can we do to make sure that DCS is held to the same standard as our parents are when it comes to making sure our kids get to school?
I wish I had a great answer for that. When kids are brought into custody and they're in that transitional phase, and our case managers are looking after them, and a kid says, "I'm not going to school today," and they're 15 years old and they're 6 feet 3 inches tall and they weigh 210 pounds, and my case manager is 5'2" and 110 pounds soaking wet, she goes, "Okay, what would you like for breakfast?" I mean, she's just not, she's not making him go. We're not in the business of putting our hands on people and forcing them to go to school. I mean, she can try to cajole him into school. But we're not in the business of forcing kids. I mean, if the parent can't make him go to school, the state cannot make them go to school either. And many times truancy is part of the reason why kids are brought into custody, right? Truancy is a symptom of something else that's going on. And we can't, that is no good reason to bring a kid into custody, right? It's a symptom of something else that's going on. But again, that's part of this strategy of putting Intercept into the home to try to prevent these custodial episodes where this is not the right answer. Bringing a kid into custody because they're truant, because they're disorderly, we're not going to do any better with them coming into custody than what's happening at home. If they're not committing delinquent acts, they need to stay at home. Disorderly is they're not going to be any less disorderly with us than they are in the home. They need to stay at home, and we need to put resources in the home to deal with them at home. That's where they need to stay. They need to stay at home. That's Margie's opinion.
You good?
One more.
Okay, one more.
Thank you. And so the other thing is, you mentioned volunteers and people like giving back to the
Mentors would be great.
or whatnot. So for those watching or whatnot, I definitely want to give a shout out to Miss Roshan Alston and the Works for being able to provide a lot of resources and stuff to our area in Memphis here recently. But what are ways that volunteers and people can get involved who may be watching or listening to us in this process? How can they volunteer, or how can they give? If there's organizations, businesses, people who want to give back, what are some of those ways that they can do that?
I think that Every Child Tennessee is a great opportunity to get involved. I think for people who have always wanted to try to serve in this particular way, but think, not sure I'm ready to bite off a whole foster care thing. Not sure I want to be a foster care parent. But you could help a foster parent. If everybody would get involved just a little bit, right? If you'd be willing to surround a foster parent and volunteer in that way, once a week do something, once every couple of weeks do something to help a foster parent, then that helps our foster parents sort of stay in the game, if you will. And I know that we have enough volunteers out there to help all the foster parents that we do have really stay in the business of fostering. Because fostering is hard work. It's not easy work. And if we have volunteers that surround that foster parent and help them with the day-to-day, right? If somebody will come and pick up the laundry on Monday and return it on Wednesday, that would be a huge help. If somebody will come and cook meals for the foster parent, somebody come mow the yard, somebody come and, transports the kids, I mean, carpooling is hard work. I mean, all of those things to help the foster parent. So volunteering through Every Child Tennessee would be a great thing. If you can be a mentor, if you're a tutor, if, helping kids by tutoring, do all of those things, whatever your talent is. We all have talents. Dig deep. What's your talent? Find your talent and do that. Be that.
Chairman Doggett.
Thank you, Chair Lady and Commissioner. I just want to say, one, thank you for your life's work and dedication to the state of Tennessee and the positions that you've held over the years. And a lot of times it's nice to know that the people that work with you and work for you do an excellent job. And I just want to brag on the young lady and the young man that represents your department here to the legislature. I know that we give them numerous inquiries and we need help on things. Excuse me. And they're always very quick and thorough with their responses. And so they do a great job representing you and your department, and we are honored to be able to work with them. So thank you.
I was going to say that.
Sorry, ma'am.
Representative Alexander, you're recognized.
Thank you, Commissioner Quinn and everyone here. Thank you all for being here today. And it's wonderful to, even though these numbers are scary and sad to us and at times, especially East Tennessee for me, when I see the numbers there, it's good to know you're making progress. And the progress you have made since you've been in this position has been huge. And I just want to say thank you. Thank you from our state. And we've got a long way to go.
We do.
But you've already brought us a long way, and we're very grateful for that. So thank you very much.
Representative Towns, did you still, one more, please?
Thank you very much. Certainly ditto all those great comments about your performance. One thing I'd like to suggest is that when kids don't want to go to school, we may need some time to figure out some reasoning why. There may be some bullying. There may be some gang activity. There may be some other stuff that they're not going to tell you about. We have to figure out how to get to the core of what is causing them not to want to go to school. Then we can use a little bit of psychology. You have to outthink kids. And it's, excuse me, it's not that easy, but sometimes it is really easy to outthink kids if you use child psychology. May have to sometimes get their peers involved. Who are the brightest kid that may have in this situation to talk to? For instance, if you're trying to learn math and you can't get it, you get with the smartest kid in the class, maybe they can teach you a different way. Maybe use some other techniques. Down the road, if they don't have this education, it's going to be a problem. There's another statistic that we're creating. So we got to figure other ways. This is not a temporary problem. This is something that will become permanent. And then after that, you're going to raise other kids that have no expectation for education. All of it compounds in our society and creates problems for us. So, and we may have to dedicate some resources towards that. And, kids, they're easy to excite, pizza and football and all kinds of stuff that they like. We have to figure out how to utilize what we have, to get them motivated. Once the light switch goes off in their head, they got it, they can move in the right direction. But we have no luxury of not being able to, try something that's going to get these kids on the right track. It's difficult for many of us to remember how it was when we were children. Okay. But we still had attitudes. We thought we knew everything. Okay. Didn't want to listen to anybody. Your mom and daddy, old fashioned, they don't know anything. Okay. But that's a child's mind. Okay. And you can never get into confrontation with them on their level because they're going to always win because their stuff is illogical. They think they know. You got to outsmart them with psychology and so forth and turn them around. It's a gradual process, but you got to turn them around because obviously they need it. Their families are going to need it in the future, and we need them to be productive later on, So thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any other questions? Well, I too thank you and your whole group. You do wonderful things for us, and I'll have to say that your two assistants that come to our offices are very helpful, and so are Carla's very helpful on the Second Look Commission, so we're really proud that she's on there, as well as you. So you have done a lot, and I'm really looking at where they're trying to keep the children in the homes. I know that's where they belong as long as they can, so I like that a lot. Um, I think we all like that. And the numbers, even though they're staggering, they are a lot better than even last year when you had your report. So we appreciate all the hard work. And, we always say we want to save every one of them, but if we can do it one at a time, that's what we're going to do. So thank all of y'all for being here today. So thank you. So we're going to go back into session. Without objection, we're going to adjourn.
Objection.
Objection. Are we going to vote on that?